Hello, Cousin Johnny here. I'd like to shout out to the sponsors of the Buzzin' with Cousin show. Max Fit Meals, 520 Fremont Street, Monterey. Grab and go healthy meals. They're delish. I Heart You Candles and Gifts, 329 Lighthouse in Monterey. Also Tuesday night at Farmers Market, Monterey. That garlic stuff, if you like garlic, you're going to love that garlic stuff. Tuesday at Monterey Farmers Market. And go to thatgarlicstuff.com for more information and more locations. Destination 831, live streaming. Promote yourself, promote your business. Destination 831. Go to Facebook, and Kevin Armstead will take care of you. The Sweet Spot on 9 Delfino Place, Carmel Valley, California. Beautiful spot. Sit out there in the sun. You got olive oil. You've got wine tasting. You got sandwiches, baked goods. The Sweet Spot. 9 Delfino Place, Carmel Valley. Thank you, the sponsors, for helping out. That is, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Ara pachatiahawan was yeyechem. Ara pachatiahawan.
At the Japanese American Citizens League Heritage Center. And they have a museum here. And it's about the Japanese influence on the Monterey Peninsula. And I'm going to check it out. I'm walking in, and I see my friend, the curator of this museum, and also Monterey historian, Tim Thomas. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Cousin, how are you today? Welcome to our little museum.
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you for coming.
And this is great. It's on 424 Adams Street, which is, Adams Street is like next to that Captain Stoker's coffee house.
It's a very hip place.
A great place. And Tim's got a cup of coffee from there. And at right across the street from the gym, the Monterey gym center. So anyway, here I am, Tim. So I'm excited about being here. So let's see what we have here.
Well, Johnny, welcome. Just a little brief history of the building itself. So what most people don't know, that this neighborhood that was once a thriving Japan town. And this building was right in the center of it. Built in 1926 by an organization called the Japanese Association, which was made up of mostly Japanese businessmen, mostly associated with fishing industry and the Monterey Wharf.
Beautiful.
They built the building because they felt they needed to have some kind of central place where people could come and work out issues, or newly arriving Japanese immigrants could come and assimilate into the community, and that kind of thing. After a camp, after World War II, many families came and lived right down here where the museum is today. So, and it's been in the hands of the Japanese since day one.
Yeah, a lot of people in the Monterey community, they don't really know of the influence of the Japanese in the Monterey Peninsula, the fishing and
that's right, and
the canneries.
Very important. The fishing industry in particular. That's what brought the Japanese to Monterey, was fishing. Abalone and salmon in particular.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Tim, I'm excited. Can we kind of look around and take a little tour here?
So this is, of course, the entrance of the museum, and we're not necessarily chronologically in order, but we try to follow a particular path.
Okay.
You do that as you come into the museum here.
Okay.
So we do have, this is over here is a ancient map of the Chiba Prefecture of Japan. And Chiba is an area where a number of abalone fishermen came from. They still fish abalone, not part of Japan. If you look at this map, right down there on that little point right there, that's where they all come from. An area known as the Boso, and there's a number of little towns. It's a big, beautiful peninsula, and it looks a lot like Monterey. I've been there many times.
Yeah,
peninsula. And a lot of these abalone divers come from that very community. That's for Jinosuke Kodani. That's a name some of your listeners may recognize. He's from that area of Japan. He created the Point Lowest Canning Company very early on over there.
Now, Tim, when did the first Japanese come to Monterey?
So the Japanese arrived here about 1895. And there was one particular gentleman, right? Here he is. This is the guy named Otto Sabaru Noda, and Noda came to Monterey to work for the then land arm of the Southern Pacific Railroad, the Pacific Improvement Company. Noda-san was a kind of a labor contractor, and he was down near the Monterey Wharf one day, and he looked into the harbor, and he just saw all this abalone down there.
Wow, yeah.
So much abalone, he literally described it in the letter as being a carpet of abalone.
Wow,
and nobody in Monterey was doing anything with it. Yeah. So Noda-san writes a letter back to the government of Japan and said, hey, all this abalone here, nobody wants it.
Yeah.
And then they sent Jinosuke Kodani, who came and they created a California Monterey abalone industry. These would be the first divers who came to Monterey, and we know who they were. We actually have seen their passports, so and all that. We know these guys came about 1896 and to dive abalone, and this is what they call ama. This is their traditional dive gear, which consists of this little white cotton outfit here, and abalone basket, and there's an abalone pry, and a pair of goggles, and you can see in the picture they would actually attach pig's bladders to the goggles that they would squeeze to help release the pressure. Early on, they would do that, and this is tradition. You should still go to Japan. They still dive exactly like that.
Just
today.
Like now today, right?
Changed.
Wow, that's not.
Although in some places they wear wetsuits and that kind of thing to do that. Then, so we have other, here is a label. I don't know if you can see this, Johnny, with your camera, but here is a wonderful label.
I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in on that label.
There you go. For the Monterey Fishing Canning Company. This was the very first tannery on Tannery Row.
Okay.
And it was owned by Otto Sabaru Noda, opened in 1902. And operates until 1907, and that's the label for his sardines. Very, very important. So he went down to that part of Cannery Row, and if you know Cannery Row, where they're going to build that marketplace thing, we're between the El Torito restaurant, I believe, and the Chart House.
Yes.
Yeah, he leased that piece of property and sent back to Japan for other Japanese fishermen who came, and he created a little fishing colony on that very site right down there. And then he built this cannery that he sold in 1907. But the very first cannery on Cannery Row.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
His cannery. And
that's called California Golden Seal.
Yeah. California sardines. Yeah, very, very important.
I'll zoom in on some other stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Frank Monaco is also really important. The Monaco family came here about 1906, and Frank was a young boy then, and went to school here in Monterey, went to Monterey High School, played baseball right across the street, and actually got to see Joe DiMaggio play baseball.
Okay, across the street is going to be where Jack's Park. Just to give everybody out there, an idea exactly where we're located here.
It looks a little different than when he played baseball.
Yeah.
But he got to see Joe DiMaggio, and he told me once, he said, if Joe DiMaggio, the son of a fisherman, can be a baseball player, and Frank Monaco, the son of a fisherman, can be a baseball player.
That's right. And
his dad said, no, you are going to be a fisherman.
Speaking of fishing, I see a purse seiner right here.
This is Frank's boat, model of it. When he was 18 years old, he got this boat. He was the first Japanese fisherman in all of California to to have one of these boats.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And this was in about 1926, 1927, and these were very, even in those days, this boat could cost up to $30,000. So he said, Frank, where'd you guys get that money? They weren't a wealthy family. He said there was an engine company up in San Francisco that had just developed this brand new kind of experimental diesel engine.
Wow, that's a beautiful boat.
And came down to Monterey and said, anybody want to put our engine into your boat? We'll carry the note for you.
That's and the name of it is the Ohio.
Ohio.
What would you say? That's 75 feet, that boat?
Yeah, a little smaller than that. Yeah. And then Ohio, of course, in Japanese means good morning.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's what that means.
Okay. I was wondering about that, how he came up with the name Ohio. Great.
So this model was made by master model maker Mike Croft.
Yes.
Who made a number of models. Just a beautiful one.
Yeah.
And he actually worked with Frank. Frank lived to be 100 years old. Right, and when Frank was in his late 90s, when Mike made this model, he contacted Frank and so he could get the color right and get all the details of the boat correct.
Now up top here, there's like a graphic of the Western Explorer.
Yeah, that was a later boat of Frank's. So as you know, because you come from a Monterey fishing family, the wooden boats aren't going to last forever.
Right.
And so he has to get this boat. Eventually had to trade this out for a different boat, and he had a boat called the Western Maid in between all that, and then the Western Explorer he got after World War II. So Frank, actually there was a lawsuit that he had generated against the Monterey Fishermen's Union, because at the beginning of World War II, after the 1938-39 starting season, Frank had to get a new boat, and the only boat he could get was in Southern California. And so he went down with his crew to pick up the boat and brought it up to fish the opening night of that sardine season. In those days, the fishermen would contract particular canneries. He'd fish that cannery all season. And he contracted with the Del Mar cannery, and he fished all that night, and then he came in to unload his fish, and the Monterey Fishermen's Union came in and says, no, you can't unload your fish because you're buying an outside boat.
Oh, no.
And so Frank said to me, he said, well, you know, I remember in my high school social studies class, I think that's illegal.
Yeah.
He tried to find a lawyer. No lawyer would take his case in Monterey, but he finally found a lawyer in San Francisco. It took a few years. It went through the courts, and he eventually won his lawsuit. And after the war, he won enough money where he could buy a new boat. So prior to World War II, there were literally thousands of Japanese fishermen who had their own fishing boats in Monterey, or in California. After World War II, you can count on one hand how many fishermen Japanese fishermen had their own boats, and Frank was one of them with his boat, the Western Explorer.
And you said Frank is still around now to this
No,
day?
he passed away a few years ago.
Okay.
His goal in life was to reach 100, and he got there, and then he died about 2 weeks after that.
Wow. All right, let's take our hats off to Frank.
Yeah.
Very instrumental in Monterey.
Yeah. Now this ugly chair you see here, I think it's beautiful, personally.
Yeah.
Is very, very, very important on many different levels.
Okay.
Right, so this chair, I have to say, is the seat of Monterey history. So this chair is made from the old branches from the old oak tree that supposedly Sebastian Viscaino in 1602,
wow,
and Junipero Serra in 1770 all held mass under when they first arrived in Monterey. And so the tree, if you know Monterey, was actually up about to the entrance of the lower Presidio. That's where it was initially, and the tree died on the turn of the 20th century, primarily because the city was trenching in a new sewer system, and they actually cut the roots of the tree. This upset the priest at the San Carlos Cathedral, Father Nestor. He was very unhappy with that.
Wow,
but he put
that's
a little
great.
fence around it, try to protect it, that kind of thing. And then about 1906, the city of Monterey was given the beautiful concrete statue of Junipero Serra that you see that's at the top of the Presidio now.
Yes.
Well, originally it was down below. That's where it was originally. And so they wanted to put it there. And so they sent the crew to go clean up that property. And the crew went up there. They just took the old tree and tossed it into the bay.
Wow.
Well, this really upset Father Nestor, so he went to his congregation, who was made up then of mostly a lot of Portuguese whalers. He said, you guys go up there and find my tree. And so they went out and in their whaleboats, and they actually found the tree about halfway to Santa Cruz, about 25 miles out on the bay out there. Then and this is the best part, they then harpooned the tree and dragged it back to Monterey, where they actually put up part of it behind the San Carlos Cathedral, which I believe is still there.
Wow.
And
yeah,
then
it's
a
great.
guy by the name of Harry Green, who was a very well-known Monterey person, had the Harry Green Mansion, you go down Lighthouse. And Harry Green was a lover of trees. In fact, Harry's responsible for Arbor Day. He used to be known as Tin Can Harry because he'd give away tree saplings to children in tin cans. And so Harry went to his good friend Otto Sabaru Noda and said, "Could you maybe we could make some things out of these loose branches from the tree?"
Yeah.
So Noda went to his nephew, a young man named Ichiro Noda, who'd come to Monterey from Japan when he was about 15, about 1902. Well, Ichiro didn't speak English, so Otto Sabaru, his uncle, sent him to school in Pacific Grove, at the Pacific Grove Grammar School, which was also the high school. And I guess it was pretty small because they recruited Ichiro to be part of the football team. And here's a photograph actually of Ichiro in his Pacific Grove High School football uniform. As far as I know, he is the first.
Okay, let's check it out.
He is the first Japanese national to ever play American-style football at Pacific Grove High School. So Ichiro decided he'd make these chairs. He actually made 3 of these chairs.
We're going to zoom in on these chairs.
He made 3 of these chairs. This one actually was on exhibit in 1915 at the Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco. And I have a picture of it. You can see it in the World's Fair there. And then it came back. Well, I believe that Harry Green, who was a member of the Native Sons of the Golden West, that's what they gave them. Those guys had the chairs, I believe, in the Custom House. Ichiro left Monterey in 1909. He went to New York, went to NYU, had a concession at Coney Island for many years. Then he returned to Japan right before World War II started, just to visit. And once the war started, he couldn't return to the United States. But he finally did return in the 1960s when he was close, I believe he was in his 80s at that point.
Wow, yeah.
He came here to Monterey, and his dream was to see his chairs, and they couldn't find them. No one knew what happened to them. Now he told his family all about these chairs. Everybody in his family knew about these chairs. They'd never seen them, but they'd all heard about them. All their lives they heard about these chairs. Well, this one turned up.
Wow. I'm glad you have it.
Found it at the Custom House, I believe. The other 2 are long gone. We don't know them.
Wow, that's But
this one actually was on loan to me from California State Parks. State Parks didn't know its history till I told them. And then I took photographs of this one, and I've contacted the Noda family both in Japan. And also, he has a granddaughter that lives outside of Chicago, so I sent them pictures of the chairs, so they finally got to see.
Wow, that's really great.
So to me, it's a really important little artifact. It tells a big story of Monterey, the Japanese community. It's all right there.
And it's still there. I mean, it made it all these years.
And between you and me, and don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
But I've sat in this chair, not very comfortable.
Okay. Wow.
This is another one of my favorite artifacts here. This is a union book here for a Japanese worker in the Canada, Mr. Sato.
Oh yeah.
Here's a blog over here on the panel here. This little union book tells a really important story as well. So if you know anything about unions, of course, you would pay your dues every month.
Yes.
And then when you pay your dues to the union, they'll come in and stamp it. You paid your dues for that month. Well, if you look at this one, he paid his dues January and February, and then he withdraws from the union in March of 1941.
Right.
He withdrew because he got drafted into the Army.
Oh, okay.
And then look, it's blank. Eventually, war breaks out in December of 41. He becomes a member of the 442nd, which is the most decorated Army unit in American history.
Yeah.
The all Japanese unit, right? And he comes back from World War II. What do you do? He goes right back to work in the canneries. It picks up again.
Picks up again.
In
There it is,
1945.
September 1945.
Yeah, that little book tells a huge story.
That was
Right
great.
there.
Really, really great.
This is actually the front of J.C. Hall, Japanese school.
Here's the front of the hall right there.
Yeah, and you can see some people out there. This is my old friend Roy Hitori when he was a young man, who became an abalone diver. This is before, so if you come to the hall today, it's been raised up a couple of times because there's a little river that runs right underneath here, and it used to flood down here. So.
Wow, it's nice. Really fascinating history here. There's a meat slicer, looks like.
So.
Oh, that's best for abalone.
No, abalone. This is in the
That's
cannery.
an abalone slicer.
This is an abalone slicer, abalone pounder tool here, right here. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of the abalone folks come from the area in Japan, in Chiba Prefecture, a town called Shirahama, and others near that neighborhood. And you can see this is a photograph I took in one of the homes of a diver that came to Monterey about 1907. And I've been into several of these homes. Every single house I went into, look, they have the shrine to Monterey.
Wow.
We had no idea those existed until then. Look at these abalone shells. These are world record size. You could take a bath in that shell.
That's gigantic.
That's how big it is.
That's
it came out of Monterey Bay.
That's gigantic.
Over 125 years ago. And look at that doll right there. That doll was purchased at Holman's department store in 1927.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, good old Holman's.
Yeah. So this, also very important artifact, this is called a maiwai. And these are indigenous to that part of Japan, and that's a big fishing community. They fish all kinds of things there, including salmon, or including sardine and shrimp and all kinds of different things. And at the end of that good fishing season, the fishermen would be rewarded this painted piece of fabric, and it has. And then the fishermen would in turn turn it into these jackets that they would wear to special events and festivals. And
oh yeah, that's great. Yeah,
like that one. But this one is very rare and very important. So you notice it's got American flag, Japanese flag, E-Day and Company, Monterey, USA. This was from Monterey.
Yeah.
You didn't even know these existed until 20 years ago. E-Day was a partner, by the way, of Noda. There are only 2 of these that exist in the world today, only 2 of them. We think less than 10 of these are actually ever made. It was something that the fishermen, they would have gotten when they returned to Japan, so it probably wasn't here initially. And there's one that's on exhibit at a museum in a town called Tateyama, Japan, which is also part of that Boso area.
Yeah.
And this one you see right here.
That's amazing
which I got from the family.
How you got that?
Well, the woman
brought it.
Who gave this to us, her great grandfather, Mrs. Kurohawa. That's a picture of her here in Japan. She presented it to us. And to say take it to Monterey, and she was very apologetic about it because it's not in very good condition. I mean, it is 120 years old, right? But
I don't know. It looks pretty good to me.
It's kind of faded and dirty and whatnot. And then she told us that after World War II, their family, as many Japanese families were destitute, and this is all they had to wear was this jacket. And so
fantastic.
I'm proud to have it here on exhibit. And so if you look in the corner over there when you came in, there's another one that we actually had made. We had it made a few years ago by the last maiwai maker in Japan, who makes traditional maiwai maker, who makes it like this. He's from that area.
So you had that made.
That's
then.
right. And he spent, with his family, he spent about 2 years making
I see
that
it, yeah.
jacket. And we do a lot of research, and we have little booklets about it, and so you can tell by the ways where it came from initially, and so we know it comes from that part of Japan and all that kind of stuff. That's really
cool. I
symbolic.
see the dive helmet.
Yeah, the dive helmet.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool.
Japan, this is really great. I mean, this is really
Here's some of
great.
my favorite stuff here. It's all on the dive gear and thing.
Here's a photo that I really like. I've seen it before right here.
Which one is that?
The one with the diver.
This guy is Mr. Watanabe.
Yeah.
Yeah, with his helmet.
I've seen that one before.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Here's pictures of the Panama Pacific International Exposition. This is the Monterey County exhibit. You'll notice all the abalone that you see.
That is something beautiful.
Yeah.
There's really a close relationship between Japan and Monterey, California.
You're absolutely right. Very
It's
close.
really like a sister.
Then you can see here all the abalone pieces. So there was a whole industry because they weren't allowed to send the shells. Believe it or not, they actually, in 1913, made it illegal to export the shells out of California. And so they would just get dumped out of the seaside and Sand City and that kind of thing, dumped over the war.
Yeah.
And so there was companies that would produce these little trinkets that they were selling all over the United States, little souvenirs. And so abalone, all little abalone hatchets and ships and keys and salt and pepper shakers and all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
I love, they all have little thermometers in it, and most of them have printed the city that they're sold in, you know, like Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, right? So nothing says Pennsylvania like abalone, right?
Yeah. Wow. Nice.
And then I love this too, by the way. This is another little story. So this is by an artist named Ray Troll. Ray Troll is a very famous marine artist in the marine science world. He's like Picasso.
Okay.
He was up in Alaska, and it's been in the news. But there's that building in Pacific Grove that they want to turn into an art center that has all that mural that wraps around it. That's by Ray Troll. This was part of that mural. And when they came in to do the mural, I was then working at the Maritime Museum.
That's nice,
Over
yeah.
And I worked with him getting photographs.
That's beautiful. That really is beautiful.
So Ray gives permission to use this here at our museum. But if you look at the diver inside the helmet,
Yeah.
right? But if you look over here he is right here. This is the diver inside the helmet. And that's my friend Roy Hitori, who I showed you a picture when he was a kid, right? And there he is right there, when he was diving abalone. When he was only 18
There he
years
is,
old.
yeah.
So they put on that wool underwear because Monterey Bay is not very warm. In fact, there was a company in Tokyo that was producing this wool underwear strictly for the divers here in Monterey.
There's a dive boat there.
Abalone dive boat.
You've got the
That was made by master model maker Tom Fordham.
helmet.
Helmet I
Look
collected
at
in Japan.
look at the abalone can with the pieces of abalone in there.
Yeah.
The goggles.
Abalone
here.
Cry.
And then there's a company, an abalone company.
Yeah, that's Point Wilma's Abalone Company.
That is really. And wait a minute. I see a baseball exhibit.
Yeah,
What's,
so sports and baseball in particular, very, very important to the Japanese in Monterey, actually Japanese everywhere.
yeah.
Baseball in particular, of course, played across the street. But what I found is that baseball is important to a lot of people. And Monterey, in the fishing world, is the only place where they had one union. Northern California, Southern California, all the ethnic groups had their own union. In Monterey, they had one. And I think that is primarily because Monterey is a small town. These guys all grew up together, they all played together, they all went to school together. But the real key, these boys all played baseball together.
And it's right across the street at Jack's Park. Your grandkids have played there. You've played there.
And it wasn't uncommon for these Japanese boys to learn to speak some Italian before they learned to speak English. And those Italian boys learned to speak some Japanese before they learned.
Because of the fishing itself.
Exactly. This is Kai Mayamoto. Kai Mayamoto was sort of the Babe Ruth of his time, a Japanese baseball player. He was a great baseball player, and a great athlete. And so we can see the uniform shirts, the Monaco, which essentially translates into small harbor.
And that was a team here in Monterey.
The Monterey team was the Monatos. And then this one is the Alameda Kono. In 1936, a group of Japanese-American boys from Northern California were formed a baseball team by Mr. Kono, and then they went to China and Japan to play baseball. And Kai Mayamoto was part of that team, and that's his uniform shirt for that.
So a lot of
the
these...
only one that exists is that one. Right
wow.
there. So it's really important.
I like the sleeve with the Japanese flag and the American flag. Yeah. Now, these guys probably played baseball, and then at night they worked in canneries and fishing.
They did. In fact, they played a lot of baseball, and Sundays are always the hardest day, and they wanted to make sure the game got done at a certain time, because if it went over extra innings, they couldn't play it because they all had to get down to the
Oh, they had to get down, yeah.
Yeah, that was really important.
Wow, great. There's a glove there with the ball.
Yeah, that was used, the glove, I believe, came out of one of the internment camps, and then the baseball is a championship ball from 1948.
Let's look at this ball here.
I actually have a number of baseballs from the team that went to Japan to play.
Is there numbers in the back? Or?
There's no numbers on the back of that.
Okay. Got more. The kettle diver. Is that the correct term? A kettle diver? Or
what's that?
A kettle diver. Is that like a...
I've not heard that before.
I don't know where I came up with that, but...
This is actually this is not a real helmet, but this was a gift to Roy Hitori's brother, Tak Hitori, who was a doctor here in Monterey. And in fact, Roy dove so he could send his brother to college. And he created the chambers that the diver would use to get the bends that they had here in Monterey.
Yeah, so look at that.
It was a gift to him.
Now, these divers were instrumental in Abalone and also for the fish hoppers.
Right, well, that was a different group of guys that did that. A guy named Eddie Bushnell.
Was it still the same?
Same kind of gear, though.
Same type of gear, yeah.
And then this is Ed Ricketts in his lab here.
There's Doc Rickett in his lab.
So in 1945, when it was announced that the Japanese would be returning home, there was a big push in California, really coming out of Salinas, an organization called the Monterey Salinas Shippers Packers Association. Didn't want the Japanese returning to the West Coast, mainly because of the land. They wanted all that land.
Yeah.
And they tried to create this organization to stop the Japanese returning to the West Coast. Well, they actually put an ad in the local newspaper trying to get people to join in their drive to stop this. And a woman by the name of Toni Jackson was so incensed by this that she created this petition system to make sure the Japanese return home and receive their full democratic rights as American citizens. Yes. Toni Jackson was actually then the live-in girlfriend of Ed Ricketts at that time. She was a very progressive person. And so these petitions disappeared. We didn't know they existed. We knew about them, those of us who had kind of researched the Japanese here, but we thought they were long gone. And then one day in 2013, I actually found them. And there's about 15 of them. And you can see this is the first one that was at Ed Ricketts' lab. Yeah. And you can see where it's signed by, she signed her name Toni Ricketts, and then Ed Ricketts' name.
I see Ed Ricketts right there. Toni Ricketts.
John Steinbeck's name over there.
Wow. Really great.
And so we have just finished a documentary film about this story, because Monterey is the only place where that happened, where the community stood up to welcome its Japanese citizens.
That is really great for this community.
Yeah, very, very important.
I can't wait for this little documentary to come out.
We're going to show the film here.
We're going to show it, and I'm going to keep everybody posted.
April the 9th.
When is it?
April the 9th.
April 9th. I'm going to remind everybody it's going to be right here. It's going to be a documentary, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be historical. So let's come down and check it out.
Or if you can't wait till the 9th, you can watch it starting April 1st on CineQuest Film Festival, where you can actually watch it in your own home. It's a digital thing.
Okay, you could actually watch it on CineQuest.
You have to go to the CineQuest website and you can get information about it.
This is cool. Okay, Tim, this has really been great.
This is all things that were involved in camp, internment camp, concentration camps, really, and things that were made in camp. The little temple that you see here actually was made by a Japanese family here, actually in Santa Cruz. They had an old crate. They made it before the war, and they took it with them to camp, which was very unusual because religious things were usually not allowed to go with them.
Yeah.
This was, and so this was actually in camp all that time.
Looks like some kind of a sink or...
It is. This is also made in camp, and it's for bonsai. And I'm not sure who the maker was, but it was highly unusual. But there have been several of these that have been documented now, makers of these concrete planters.
And this was done during the internment?
While they were in camp, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, most of these pieces were made in camp. And then all the little things, pins that are down below were all made in camp. And this carved bird also was made in camp. And if you look behind it, it's hard to see here, but it's got the wood they would get came from those fruit crates. And you can still see the labels on the back.
Very creative they were.
And by the way, this painting, there are 3 of these paintings. This is contemporary Japan. This is a town called Shirahama. Yeah, but it shows how much it looks like Monterey.
Tim, if you didn't say anything, I would think it was Monterey.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, where was that? Yeah. That is really, there's so many similarities to the Japanese and Monterey.
And then this wonderful mural photo below us here, this was taken in 1919. Yeah, that's a great picture of those 4 ladies.
I love it.
That was taken out of Point Lobos, out of Pebble Beach someplace.
And is that Lover's Point?
No, that also is in Japan. That's also Shirahama.
Now you guys out there tell me that that looks like Lover's Point.
Yeah, those are contemporary.
Looks like, to me, it looks like Lover's Point.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so we're ready to finish with our tour, and I want to show you that the new the outfit. I can't remember the name. But
My wife.
this is a new replica of.
Right. And the great story about this is the guy, the My Wife maker who made this, it was 5 or 6 years ago, the museum was just beginning to get established. But his son came to visit California. He was about 20. He was a business student in Tokyo. And he came to Monterey, and I brought him down here, and they took pictures of the museum. And I have a flag. I used to have it on exhibit over the window here, of a Japanese flag that they would fly in a boat when they launched a new boat. And he took all these pictures, and he took it back to show his father, and the father looked at that flag and goes, "You know what? Your grandfather made that flag."
Wow.
We had no idea. I collected in Japan. And so he quit his business studies in Tokyo and went to learn how to be a my wife maker with his father. And so he could continue the tradition. So they made this. Again, it took a couple of years to make it, but it's all hand done.
Look at that, beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, Tim, this has really been really great. And we could go on for another hour talking, and I'm going to let you go. I know you got stuff you got to do here. But how does somebody come to this museum?
I open up mostly on Sundays right now. from starting about 11 o'clock. And I usually go between 11 to 3 or so. Partly because we're still looking for volunteers. If
Okay.
you're interested in becoming a volunteer, we'll train you. It's not that difficult. Come and be a volunteer. I got to open on Saturdays as well, but at this point we can't do it right now, not all the time. But best way, go to the website, Monterey Japanese American Citizens League, and we have a website that's fairly new.
Japanese American Citizens League website.
Right.
I was on it myself today.
And
Go
then
on that.
You can email me, timsardine@yahoo.com. If you're interested in coming to see the museum, if you catch me on the
Yeah.
right day, I'm happy to open it up for folks just to come take a look inside.
Believe me, it's worth it because it is. If you're a historian buff of Monterey, you're gonna love it. And also, I was gonna say, get a hold of me, and I'll get a hold of Tim, and we'll make it happen
Yeah,
for you to come to see this great place.
absolutely.
So, Tim, I appreciate you, inviting me here and taking me on this tour of this great place. And I also thank you for a lot of what you do in the community, preserving the history of this great community. And every day, I learn more. Every time I talk to you, I learn more stuff that really, did that really happen? And yeah. So this has been great. I'm going to let you go. And Cousin Johnny's telling everybody, come to this beautiful museum. Everybody have a great day. And thanks again, Tim.
Thank you.